Alex here with Tool Rev, and today we're looking at the latest cordless sidewinder saws from DeWalt. So we have the 6.5-inch blade left 20 volt model DCS565, the 7.25-inch blade right 20 volt model DCS573 with FlexVolt advantage. And here we have the latest generation FlexVolt. This is the Gen 2 7.25-inch 60 volt max model DCS578. All three saws have brushless motors, rafter hooks, LED lights, electric brakes, and dust ports, but only the 6.5-inch saw came with a dust port attachment in the box, and it works pretty well. It seems to collect the majority of the dust. So with the 6 amp hour FlexVolt battery and blade on board, the 6.5-inch saw weighs 8.5 pounds, and the 7.25s weigh 10.6 pounds. I've measured all around these, and you really wouldn't be able to tell these apart if it weren't for the different colored shoes. You get an aluminum shoe with an aluminum lower guard, where the 6.5 gives you a magnesium shoe and a plastic lower guard. And I've said it before, the plastic guards on these are pretty tough. I've been using them for 8 years now, really abusing them, and haven't cracked one yet. With the 7.25s, you get a 0 to 57 degree bevel with a 22.5 and a 45 degree stop, where the 6.5 gives you a 0 to 50 degree bevel with no stops. The 45 depth is 2 inches on the 7.25s, as you can see by these first two lines here, and 1 5/8 on the 6.5. So all three saws can 45 through 2x material, but only the 7.25s can 2-pass 45 through a 4x. With the 7.5s, for some reason, you get a plastic front grip instead of a rubber overmold grip. But I actually really like it. It gives you a full grip while still allowing you 2 full eyes on the blade through the rear cutout. It's a large rear cutout, a really good visual path on these 7.25-inch saws. So great for starting a cut. If you run FlexVolt tools, you know they only run on these FlexVolt batteries, which are 60 volt batteries that convert down automatically to 20 volt batteries on 20 volt tools. You also know that using these FlexVolts on many 20 volt tools gives them an extra boost in power. You can see that here with the 6.5 ripping 2 sheets of 1/2-inch plywood using a 5 amp hour 20 volt on the left and a 6 amp hour FlexVolt on the right. DeWalt says running this 20 volt advantage saw on a 6 amp hour FlexVolt battery gives it up to 77% more power than using a 5 amp hour 20 volt battery. Let's test that by ripping 2 sheets of 1/2-inch plywood using a 5 amp hour 20 volt on the left and a 6 amp hour FlexVolt on the right. So a big difference between those two batteries on this 20 volt advantage saw, bigger than the difference we saw between those same batteries on this 6.5-inch 20 volt saw. But let's get an idea of just how fast this advantage is running on a 5 amp hour battery by comparing it to the 6.5 on a 5 amp hour battery. So the 6.5-inch is faster on a 5 amp hour battery, which was a little surprising to me. I guess it kind of makes sense, it's pushing a smaller blade. But now let's see these both on a 6 amp hour FlexVolt battery. I can tell you, after making multiple cuts and rips with these two saws over the past couple of days, they are equal in speed and power. If anything, the advantage saw is easier to stall, even though this sounds like it's struggling more. So now let's run the FlexVolt advantage saw against the actual FlexVolt saw using a 6 amp hour FlexVolt battery. And for all these tests, we're using fully charged batteries and as close as we can get to equal blades. Both of these saws have a sweet spot as far as how fast they can cut versus how much pressure you can apply. When you push the FlexVolt past that sweet spot, it just slows it down, where the Advantage saw stalls out. And you can just feel this is a smoother cutting saw. So now let's test out the FlexVolt saw against my 15 amp quarter Makita. This is the 5007 MGA. As far as blade left versus blade right, if you're right-handed, a blade left saw gives you increased blade visibility and better control on rips because the shoe rides the material, where blade right saws give you more control when cross-cutting for the same reason, and vice versa for lefties. And that's about it for me, guys. I hope this information helps you decide if you want to get one of these, and if you do get one, I hope it works well for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.